We're now an AI native digital engineering business competing with the big names. When COVID hit, the vendors needed business. We started food houses. Being a leader in this day and age is tough. It's not easy because you have to make hard decisions.
Welcome to Winning Cultures in SMB. I'm your host, Kai Sato. Today we are joined by Imran Aftab, co-founder and CEO of 10Pearls. Thanks for taking some time.
Thank you for having me.
So Imran, today we're going to talk about 10Pearls, the company you've built, the culture that you guys have established and maintained. And this show is really about people coming together and creating value in not only a company, but also their communities. And oftentimes, we hear about a startup with their ping pong tables and happy hour, or AOL, a big company where you once worked, and what that is like. But these businesses, oftentimes with only a couple dozen or a couple hundred employees, are real stalwarts in their communities. They sponsor Little League, they provide jobs, they put food on the table. And that's really what we're dedicated to here. And look forward to hearing a lot more about 10Pearls and how you've built this business. If you wouldn't mind, please take us back to inception. Give us the full interview. What industry are you in? What year were you founded? How many employees do you have? What's the story?
So we were founded in 2004. I had almost zero entrepreneurial experience back then. We started off because we wanted to change the world through opportunity creation and creating job opportunities around the world. And my experience before then had been with AOL, Time Warner Cable, where I was the head of transformation and outsourcing, managing budgets around the world. And I was seeing the impact that job creation makes in countries like India, Philippines, South Africa, Argentina, etc. And given that my background is I'm Pakistani origin, born in Pakistan, I always have felt that Pakistan was a great destination for technology and engineering services. So our original inception was to find build a company that would connect the development talent in Pakistan with U.S. companies, creating a net value addition for everybody. Of course, we've evolved throughout these years, and today we are a global AI native digital engineering and transformation business, and we are helping companies in highly regulated industries like healthcare, financial services, industrials, telco, to figure out how to leverage AI to truly innovate and become more efficient internally. As you know, all these companies are trying to figure out, what does AI mean to them? What does it mean to be AI native? Many companies have experimented. They're not seeing the value. Maybe they have some efficiency here and there, but they haven't really been able to take it and deploy these great technologies enterprise-wide. That's where we come in. And with our scale, around being in global locations, US-based, headquartered in Northern Virginia, with offices here in DC metro area, in Chicago, and a small satellite office in Dallas, Texas. We have delivery centers around the US, also in Latin America. We're in Costa Rica, Colombia, Peru, Mexico, Argentina, and then we are also in London, UK, and Pakistan. And we've just started our operations also in Saudi Arabia as well.
Incredible. No wonder you're on a lot of airplanes. How did you get this thing off the ground? There's going to be a lot that we're going to unpack around AI and what it means to be native, and even your story, and not only how you wound up in the United States, but how you got through high school, because I think that it's all germane to why this business exists. But who was that first customer? How did you get this thing going, especially because you had not been an entrepreneur previously?
Good question. By the way, I tell this to a lot of my friends and my colleagues and people who work for me, is that when I left AOL, I gave 9 9 to 12 months of notice. Most people don't do that because they're afraid that they will be, let go. But I felt that because I was in such a strategic leadership position, I owed it to AOL to fully transition me, and of course I did my best to completely replicate me. Got my managers up to speed and everything else, so they were self-sufficient. And by that token, because of that, some of my colleagues became my customers. Some of my managers became my customers initially. But from day one, when I sort of decided to do this, I don't have much sales experience. I had some pre-sales experience, but not really lead generation experience. So I thought if I walk door to door selling websites to restaurants and mom and pop shops, that would be a great opportunity. I learned quite a bit, and that was the greatest lesson I've learned. You build thick skin, you figure out how to pivot to higher value services, and you pick your audience as well. So those are things that I did, and then we continue to evolve as we saw that the types of customers that would really want our services are maybe enterprises, maybe more mature enterprises, and then what is the service we're providing them in terms of, is it really adding value to them or not? Just setting a website to them wasn't interesting to them. What they were interested in is getting more customers, right? So that epiphany was, it took about a year or so, but that was a greatest learning experience. And we've applied that principle throughout our journey. Of course, we're now an AI native digital engineering business, competing with the big names. We're fortunate enough to be included when people are looking at bringing on Accenture or Globant or EPAM, Cognizant, Endava. We are the name that comes up also, that, hey, here's another interesting option, might not be as big, but certainly enterprise grade and with the scalability and agility and technical know-how to implement. So yeah, it's been an evolution, but I would say that it started off with sort of making sure that my relationships were intact. I was transparent with my teams, and I was confident that, no matter what, if they let me go, I would be able to stand on my feet. I wasn't afraid of that because I did my job to the nth degree.
You mentioned the word pivot, and I think every startup, especially every business, especially if you've been in business for years or decades, you've pivoted. And so what was the initial path? What did you pivot into? You mentioned maybe customer acquisition and helping drive top line for businesses, but you also, you had to navigate things going into the cloud. Yeah, some major technological transformations. Now, obviously, AI is another massive one. But what were some of those pivots, those changes? When did were there ever some really scary moments where you guys facing bankruptcy? When did you kind of realize that you had it right, and when was that your sales?
Yeah, no, good question. I always say this, services companies are easy to start but difficult to scale. And yes, we were caught in the 2008 a recessionary cycle. I'm aging myself, but that was a time where we were sort of in front of some tough choices. We knew that a project was going to end because budgets being cut across, and our choice was to sort of let go of the team or do something different. We decided that at that point we were going to invest in building fun mobile games for children. And we had some ideas, but we did create a game called Animal 101. By the way, it's still out there on the App Store. Back then, it was developed for Nokia, which was, a much more popular platform.
My first cell phone.
Yeah, absolutely. Mine too. And we were fortunate that AT&T gave us the second best game award in a global competition in California. We then also created a couple of apps that help people track their tasks. Think of it as a Kanban or agility board, digital, where you can move tasks from being sort of, in situ to being completed or waiting for something else. And that also won a number of awards from Nokia and other providers. Of course, it came with, like, small, dollars in terms of reward. But what was most important was that we got our name out there and we became recognized as the best mobile company in the world. And that drove a lot of leads into us because people were like, wow, you've built some amazing, interesting stuff. Can you build XYZ for us? This is, by the way, how I met Michael Chasen, the co-founder of Blackboard back then, when he was launching his new digital platform called Social Radar. They were seeking a nimble and upcoming company they were experts in mobile, and all that experience helped us get our names out there. So, yeah, and that has been the theme in our company, is continuing to invest in new things, in learning, and we have now sort of codified this into 10Pearls Labs, where we're experimenting with new tech. Some things might stick, some things might not. It could be proof of value, prototypes. But if you're not expending some amount of investment in these things, then you're going to be left behind, because, as you know, technology has been really evolving much more exponentially now in the last couple of years, but it's always been going up the ladder. So if you're in tech, you really have to be a learner, and you have to be comfortable with learning from others that you think you might be an expert, but tomorrow you will be learning from people who are much younger than you are.
Good point. Perfect segue. So if we focus on 10 Pearls culture specifically, how would you describe this culture? How was it formed? How has it evolved? What makes you guys different?
Sure. So the number one reason why I wanted to start this business is because I believe that through business and opportunity creation, we can create a better future, right? And I know that once you operate in locations, you can make an impact, philanthropic, social, related to education, and I've seen, again, firsthand, all of this happening, and so that was the impetus that we are going to start this, because we wanted to create a better, peaceful world. That sort of kept us on the treadmill, but it also meant that if we have that vision, then we couldn't afford to cheat nor fail our clients, right? So we had a very strong North Star, and we knew that, one only sort of fails once they quit, right? If you don't quit, you don't fail, but you always have to find opportunities. And so this allowed us and brought people together that had a can-do attitude. And yes, we have a fun culture, balance, but they are willing to push themselves and explore what's out there. And so I say 10 Pearls is a place where you come in, you will learn quite a bit. If you're willing to work hard and evolve your career, this is the place to be. Sure, we'll have fun, but it's not like a place where, a bunch of ping pong tables define our culture. It's where you actually are going to come out of your comfort zone. You're going to make an impact directly, and you'll see the fruits of your labor, right? And you'll be able to participate also in all these initiatives that we have put together around our social impact, categories.
We're going to force you to tell us even more about the social impact element. But this is a very unique founding story in the sense that it's not only a family business, because you've co-founded this with your brother, if I'm not mistaken, and it was also started at your mother's house. You were working from her kitchen, and it was also an international business. So very atypical when you think about the classic startup. So how how has that played in working with a family member? And by the way, who's the first non-family member that you hired? And what's that progression like? Because even three-person startup has a culture, whether you know it or not, right?
Very fortunate that I found my partner in crime, my brother, who was all in this vision. And, we started this business out of our small, humble home. And we sort of had a small storage room, if you will, and we made that into a lab. And our first employee was a person that used to work with my brother in Pakistan. He was our designer, developer, and QA. And and the story about this is that my mother, she's passed on now, but she was a great cook. And when she cooked, the entire neighborhood smelled, in a good way, the aroma, the food aroma. And so, of course, from that day we had a culture of serving lunch to our employees in our Pakistan location. Um, so yeah, so we started there, and of course, it takes time to bring in the right leaders. Given that we were geographically apart, helped us. But I'm a big fan of like family-run businesses, as long there is good separation of the emotional and the objective, right? So
Which is so easy to do.
yeah, exactly.
I'm sure you guys have never had a disagreement.
Oh, sure. No, we've had a ton of agreements, and that's the test of your partnership, is that a partnership, what if it's hollow, it's not real, and if you're not able to sort of argue and then get back together, that makes you stronger. So, yeah,
I think being a co-founder helped prepare me for marriage. It's your first marriage.
100%,
And there's a
100%.
lot. Hopefully you do enough diligence and it's a good ride, but it's
Yes,
you're really in the
yes,
foxhole with somebody. Can
yeah.
you so I know that lunch is a very important component to this business, always has been, I believe it always will be. Um, what is that like? How do you guys, do you plan this out? Who makes the food? Is it available at all satellite offices or just in Pakistan? How does the free lunch for employees aspect play out, and how does it show today?
It's just in Pakistan. A number of reasons. The arbitrage is larger in Pakistan. Food is much cheaper, of course. You know, there, and it's also allows us to get people together, because uh, we are in the office culture, but some hybrid opportunity as well. But it allows people to collaborate. But it started off with us doing it sort of personally, to then bringing in mom and pop vendors to help us, right? Families who were in need and would cook good, clean food. And now it's become a pretty interesting operations. And by the way, when COVID hit and things moved, um, sort of people, we start working remotely. We took those. We didn't have this food need anymore, but actually the people, the vendors needed business because they were dependent on us. We started food houses to feed the poor. That's where our sort of initiative around feeding people, the poor, started off or expanded during that era.
That's incredible. We always like to know, because it's a real test of culture when you face adversity. What was COVID like? How did it impact your business? How did you get things back online? What did it, teach you about your people and your culture?
Yeah, no, it taught us that our team is resilient. We were pleasantly surprised how quickly we came together, and overnight we moved to remote, working style. Very minimal impact in productivity. The clients were very kind. Um, Back then, right? Things are different now. No, it's all good. But people very understanding, very supportive. So we were able to move quickly, and we were um, just the whole entire world was really re-examining what it is to be human. So we're very proud of our people, and so when you attract the right people, they do the right things, and we empowered them as well. And there was some self-organization as well, some grassroots organic efforts, and then corporate also helped facilitate that. So we build standard operating procedures. How do we do in terms of like backups and internet access, and what happens when electricity is cut because of load shedding, happens in different parts of the world. We were able to navigate that. But around that same time, that's where our Latin American operations also grew. That was an opportunity for us to introduce and expand into the same time zone.
Was that an obvious one? How did that come about? How did you see that opportunity?
It was a combination. Our customers were very interested in learning more about our nearshore capabilities because remote working became popular and accepted. It's like, well, you could be sitting in Arizona versus, Costa Rica. So we were exploring how to expand that, and we were debating between setting up our organic offices organically, or, and I'm a big fan of like sort of keeping the local culture as is. A lot of companies have gone out to different locations and try to bring cultures from different regions over there, and that's not necessarily successful, right? Of course, you can take some values and processes, but I firmly believe that the underlying culture needs to be maintained, and local leadership should be promoted. So around that same time, there was a Costa Rican government entity reached out to us. They said, they've been our names came up because they've been following what we've been doing with Pakistan, and being a double bottom line company. They invited us to explore if we can invest in Costa Rica. So through them, we found some great businesses, and we found founder-led businesses that we could bring on board as seed operations and then expand them. Of course, acquisitions is another story, but it's really like once you sow the seed, you have to then make sure that it grows. You have to give it time, and you have to invest in it continuously and expand it. So we've done that successfully, and we've now pretty large force in Latin America because of that, and fully integrated. So
yeah, no, and it makes a lot of sense that you don't want to be too disruptive to the status quo. I don't want to tell people they can't have siesta if it's been part of the life, right?
yeah. I don't think that's there anymore.
I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Exactly.
But no, there are certain values.
Some cultures, like if you go, I've been to Vietnam, and in Vietnam, it's common that people take a nap, and the nap is usually between 12:30 to 1:30, and they usually sleep right at the desk, at where the desk is. So the culture of taking your shoes off and working in socks makes a lot of sense, because you want to make sure that you maintain the cleanliness. And I've seen that in person, that people will take naps. So yeah.
No, this is my mother's actually a former college professor, and she taught business culture at graduate school at Thunderbird in Arizona, which is where I'm from, and saw firsthand. She taught a lot of executives from Sungkyung and Motorola, so big Korean companies, and they'd come over here and they really just wanted to golf. But for instance, if there was a question posed to the classroom, and if the most senior person in the room didn't know the answer, then no one else was allowed to answer it. Right. So she was trying to get more of an interactive educational experience for people, and more of a Socratic method of teaching, but none of those hands were going up in the air if the boss didn't know. And so just those little nuances, and you're not going to get people to change their minds. Right. And so just being respectful of how things work, and then trying to find a way to assimilate, your corporate culture into, especially being that global. I mean, there's not an hour of the day where someone's not working at 10Pearls, right?
Yeah, exactly. No, that's our mantra. This 24/7. We have these operations as well, where it's follow the sun around the clock. So yeah,
it makes sense. When you were building this, or today, and obviously you came from a place like AOL when it was a rather hot company in the world, Are there any other cultures that you admire? Were there ones that you tried to emulate and infuse into your business?
So before then, AOL definitely was a very important, very impactful culture. AOL was always run like a startup, regardless of the size. It was amazing how quick decisions were made quickly. But before that, I worked at MicroStrategy. Michael Saylor and company, fantastic, folks, really, really smart, intelligent people, and people who believed. So that was also a global company, people from all over the world, and it really, taught me to think big and sort of work on the value side. How do I create value? Uh, you know, so that those 5 years there, and I had the privilege of working in product management, where I even took on the applications, product, became head of product management for them. I was in pre-sales. I was also in education, in front of customers. Those are all great skills. And again, that was the culture of excellence, right? And MicroStrategy was a company led from the top. The top folks, all of them have now become some, great companies have come out of it. Matt Calkins at Appian, I worked with him as well. Gaurav Rawari, one of my favorite teachers, mentors. He's now in the Bay Area, sold his company to ServiceNow or something. Sid Banerjee, right? Clara Bridge. We've some great luminaries that have come out of this, and I had the privilege of rubbing shoulders with them, learning, and following what they've been doing. And then before that, I spent a year or so in investment banking. That's something that I'm trying to recover from.
Well, we always like to know how businesses are involved with their communities and how they give back. For you, it's actually the mission of your entire company. So, if you wouldn't mind, just share a little bit with our audience about how you almost had to leave a Jesuit school and how you saw the impact of a dollar into not just a family, but into a community. And then how you wound your way to the United States after being a part-time teacher yourself. Just share some of that because it doesn't seem like you can work at 10 Pearls unless there's some element to that in your blood.
Yeah, no, thank you for bringing that up. So, yeah, no, it's something that it's a miracle, why we're all here. I'm sure everybody has some stories of their own, but yeah, I dropped out of my high school because it was too expensive to study there. It was a private school, one of the top schools in Pakistan, St. Patrick's High School, and I dropped out because I couldn't afford the education. We couldn't afford the education as a family. And back then, the principal was passed on, the Bishop Lobo, Anthony Lobo. He was extremely kind. He invited my father and me to his offices, and you know, pretty much gave us a free education. Gave me a free education. And by the way, I'm Muslim, and never asked me to learn the scriptures or anything. It didn't actually, no strings attached, nothing. And I know that there were far more students who were maybe smarter or more deserving that he could have helped, perhaps even of the minority sector, but he didn't discriminate against me. And that was a very big lesson. And that's what shaped my life. When I look at interfaith activity, I believe that everybody's trying to make this world a better place. Everybody's trying to help children. Everybody believes that education and helping women become financially independent is the way to be successful, right? Especially because they're going to be the custodians of our future generation. So helping them is important. So yeah, that has sort of come back to me, and it was during a conversation at AOL that I had with one of my ex-managers, where he blatantly asked me, Imran, you seem okay, but why are most Pakistanis kind of weird? So he might have been hanging out with the wrong crowd, the right crowd, who knows? But that sparked a long conversation, and I relayed my story, and he was pleasantly surprised and shocked. And that's when I realized that, what, it was a calling. It was just, I have to give back. Many people have helped me here, also in America, in the US, through the scholarships I've received, through strangers who have like loaned me money. My roommate, I'll call him out, Josh Gigerman. He's I met him at Chapel Hill I was there for my PhD program. First day I've met him is one of those days, where you find your roommate through the newspaper, right? And on day one, he loaned me $10,000. He said, "Give it back to me when you can," because I had some, cash flow issue. And I don't know if I was even asking for that money. I was just letting him know, so I might be a little bit late in rent or something, right? Because I was subleasing from him. Um, you know, so this act of kindness, right? I mean, the world is full of like kind people. I believe that everybody inherently is good. Uh, we just have to make sure that we align on purposes and unlock this. Some people have, issues. Everybody has a chip on the shoulder. I'm sure I do as well. Um, yeah, so it's about that, and I was able to connect the dots, take my experiences, take my what motivates me, and do this through a business activity where I'm true to my the cause that I'm passionate about, but also helping businesses adopt AI, look at cutting edge. Problem solving is something that I love, right? I don't believe, at least personally, that science for the sake of science is interesting to me personally. But when I can solve business problems with it, then it becomes more fun. And that's where you have to come out of your comfort zone.
If you can, everyone's talking about AI, and you guys literally drive revenue off of it. So where does your business go from here the next 10, 20, 50 years? How does AI impact you guys? How do you stay ahead of the curve?
50 is a long time. The next 2 to 5 years are going to be very interesting. There are many businesses who are struggling, and there are many businesses who have great opportunities. So if you look at the mid-market businesses, they have a unique opportunity to become AI native, right? And when I say AI native, it's not just layering AI on top of their products or on top of their processes, but to really redesign their operations around AI. And they are in the right size framework to sort of reinvent themselves. Some of it would require them to cannibalize their own business. But if they're able to do that, they can leapfrog some of the behemoths who are there, who might be a little slower to react because it's more difficult to steer a larger boat, a larger ship. So that's the opportunity. And by the way, this is what OpenAI and Anthropic have announced with, formulating their own services businesses in partnership with private equity firms and investment banking firms to solve for that problem. So the opportunity is huge. Of course, to do that, you need to invest in foundational efforts. You have to figure out governance, right? You have to figure out how agentic AI works across different functions and the orchestration cross-functionally around that. Cybersecurity is going to be an issue as well. And even the LLMs, the OpenAI and Anthropic, realize this is important. Otherwise, why would they be figuring out digital engineering? It's not about the best model. It's not about intelligence anymore. It's not about compute, but it's about how do you help businesses and reach the developers, right? So distribution is important. How do you do it in a safe way where, enterprise feel that not going to go away tomorrow? And then how do you actually make an impact? And that's where digital engineering comes in. So it's a very exciting time for engineering firms who are AI forward, right? Who are investing in themselves, who are not afraid to make hard decisions. I've talked about this, by the way, that, being a leader in this day and age is tough. It's not easy because you have to make hard decisions. And sometimes those decisions might not be taken too kindly by individuals, but it helps the collective ship, and it gives an opportunity for the ship to go back and hire those people if sort of that's the impact that they have in a micro level. So yeah, I mean, many leaders will not be able to do this. It's exhausting. You have to invest time in learning, and it has to be top driven, because there's a study out by Gartner who says that if leaders are accountable, or holding themselves accountable and leading from the front, the organization is twice more likely to adopt AI, the teams. So really, managers have to become evangelists for AI, because if you think, oh, this is something that you can, pass on to your EA, hey, check my emails, that's not AI. You really have to get your hands dirty. And it's not that difficult, by the way. You can go to Claude and ask Claude to teach, hey, Claude, help me learn you. And it will devise a program. So we're very excited about the next 2 to 5 years. And we are in the right spot where we are the nimble, agile, AI native, flexible company that is helping both Fortune 1000 companies and mid-market companies reinvent themselves and really grow. So
if you had to distill probably the biggest question on CEOs' minds when you start with them, is it where do we get started? Is it how do we get this ball rolling, or is there something else?
no, so many companies, I don't want to say that companies have no clue. There are a lot of companies who've run pilots. There's a Deloitte study as well, which said that only 25% of companies have moved pilots to production. So there are companies there who are doing it, but only 40% of these projects are moving forward. So, but by the way, it's accelerating. People are, figuring it out. But mostly it's like, okay, how do we do this in a cohesive manner? And how do we do this efficiently? We don't have copious amount of investments to just throw at it, right? And how do we figure out the ROI? And how do we actually work with a company and not just with a provider that's going to give us expensive PowerPoints, which, by the way, you can produce a notebook out of.
No, I mean, look, for us at Malaloa, we tried to follow what I think others have done. We digitize everything. We want to train and learn. We love it for our companies. Sure, like there's cost saving benefits, but just efficiency benefits, right? Why do you want people doing mundane, rudimentary tasks, right? And just free people up to be more creative and find other ways to create value. And so, for us, it's something that we always just tell people, use it as much as you possibly can yourself, first and foremost, right? Find ways to assimilate AI into your own life. And then I think you bring up probably the most important thing, and the CEO of IBM, I think, was recently talking about how there are going to be people that try to layer in AI, and then more of the correct strategy long-term is you have to completely disrupt yourself and rethink workflows, right? And so what agents can and can't do, how people, this symphony that's going to go on. And I mean, we're reaching a level where, like you said, Claude's going to kind of tell you and direct you, but there's such immense power, and I'm blown away. Just certain companies are it's always a bell curve, right? And, we're still very early and trying to cross that chasm. But to have some companies, one was telling us that for part of 2026, they were going to put together a task force to really focus on AI. And we were like, it's a non-starter. I mean, AI's got to be pervasive, right? Like you need to be using it, like you said, as a CEO throughout the organization. That's our personal belief. Otherwise, it just won't work, right? It's like trying to learn a new language. You need full assimilation. You need to be fully indoctrinated all the time. And that's kind of the best opportunity you can to become native, to your point.
Yeah, 100%.
We'll let you move on with your day here shortly. I appreciate it. But have you ever had any outside investors have gone down that path? Has it changed your business at all? What's the ownership structure like?
No, we've been fortunate. We've sort of grown this organically with no outside infusion of capital or any long-term debt. There's a lot of scars, a lot of learnings, but we're very fortunate to have some great customers. And, I tell people that it's the most important thing is to do right by your customer, right? and customer retention is most important. And you can win customers or retain them by offering them game tickets every year. You need to really truly show value and listen to them, and then proactively pivot and give them the efficiencies that they're seeking. Then they would have no excuse to go look for an alternative, right? We have companies who come to us because they feel that the teams they've been working with are not providing them the throughput, that they feel like things can be done more efficiently. And we find that most providers are going to be nervous with AI and trying to, because maybe their business is based on headcount and the number of employees versus the value you provide to customers. So a little different here. And then being transparent. Another aspect of our culture is that we believe in sharing the truth. There are no surprises, both with employees and customers. You don't have to sort of make people feel good all the time, right? That's not a long-term strategy. And we found, by the way, we've digressing a little bit, as well as we've made acquisitions and integrated them. It's been a transition, a learning curve, because when you're acquiring a small company that hasn't grown, you can imagine a company that is small probably has an intact culture, a good culture, because everybody knows each other by their name. But the reality is they haven't grown, right? And the reality is that they're selling because they don't see the exponential opportunity for them. So the acquirer has to go through a difficult transition, because the founder might not have relayed that story to the team, and it becomes like, okay, who's the bad guy, good guy? So it's a balance, and we're very fortunate that by working together and picking the right founders, we've been able to transition. But sometimes we have been, at the expense of coming across as that, hey, maybe we are not as kind as the original founders, but we're going to help you grow, and people have seen the result of it.
Yeah, I've been on both sides of acquisitions, acquiring and being acquired, and post-merger integration is a real thing, right? Because like we say, culture is real, and there's a real inertia that you have to combat. So you've said your culture is built on learning and growth, but also giving back, right? So learning and growth, but with a real mission purpose of giving back. Do you know right away when people fit that, when they don't fit that? How do you weed that out? Does somebody come in and say, all right, I'm here to learn and grow, but I don't give a damn about giving back, right? Like how do some of those conversations play out with you guys?
It's funny, people come to us because they say, we ask them, why us? And they say, because we've seen all the great things you've been doing on the social side.
Yep.
And that's interesting to us. So people are looking for purpose.
Yeah.
Right. And they want to sort of, work, collaborate with people who also are like-minded.
Can you give a couple of examples of that? What are some that you and the team are just really proud of, either big wins or recent ones?
So we have a foundation called the Empower Foundation. We give back in geographies where we operate out of, so Pakistan, the US, Costa Rica, Colombia, Peru. In the US, we work with Girls on the Run, which is a fun, nonprofit that works on leadership at a very early age. So volunteering with them and teaching girls like leadership skills, as well as, teaching them things like design and Figma skills, right? We also participate in their marathons that happen on a quarterly basis. We've got Northern Virginia Family Services that we work with as well. They have quite a bit of focus on food assistance, and then workforce readiness. And that's an important thing because we work with a lot of migrants, refugees who are, and even just regular, citizens who are out of a job. Because you know what? Our system has failed to uptrain them on AI and all these things tech. They have gone through high school, they've gotten some great degrees, but they find themselves that are not employable. And by it's a separate topic, but this is where I think, our government can do a lot more by enabling the workforce to be, to be equipped with these skills that are needed to perform their jobs. And it's not a 4-year degree, I'm sorry to say. Of course, there are some liberal arts that's important, right? We know humanities context is important, but a 4-year degree, the expectation is different now. Don't expect to get a job if you're not familiar with how AI works or how the fundamentals of engineering works. I'm not talking about a 4-year degree, but just basic stuff, right? But we can get into the whole, I think that's why competency-based education is the future, which was talked about many years ago, but then it kind of stopped. But I think it's ever more important. Anyway, so Northern Virginia Family Services Program. And then we also have, of course, in Pakistan, we work with schools that are for the poor, and we provide them canteens. So food every day. We feed about 100,000 children a month. Yeah, and then we have classes for women who have no profession. So we teach them things, life skills, things like sewing. After a program, we donate the sewing machine to them. This is all, by the way, free programs that they come participate. So trying to make an impact wherever we can. So
Incredible. Well, final question. If you were giving some advice, and maybe you do, YPO, other people reaching out to you, it sounds like you've had to stay nimble, keep learning, always give back. Those are core to you. But what's your advice to other CEOs, other founders who are establishing or trying to improve their cultures?
you have to make the hard decisions, right? You cannot be a pleaser to everybody, right? You're not selling ice cream. You have to move on, and you are going to be challenged. You're going to have tests in front of you where somebody who's worked with you for a number of years might not agree with you and might want to leave or move the company on. You have to be resilient enough to push the ball forward, right? You have to execute on your vision. And then most important, have conviction. If you don't believe it yourself, then nobody else will.
Well said. Thank you so much, Imran. Just a truly inspiring story. And thanks for what you've done in your career and what we expect you to do in your career going forward, and how you're going to help more communities.
Thank you, Kai.